Good afternoon to all, and to all the audience, welcome to session 8, which is the VIP Roundtable. We will discuss about conclude the whole event in this session and also discuss the future business opportunities. The moderator of the session is Mr. Tahir Abdul Bari. He is the MD and CEO of the organizing committee of this event. Mr. Tahir, the stage is yours now.
Thank you very much, Afshin. Am I audible? I hope everyone can hear me. Excellent. Great. Thanks a lot, Afshin. I'm sorry, first of all the panelists. I think the session got delayed a bit. But nonetheless, we'll try to pick it up quickly from here. It's my pleasure to welcome James from the Jones Food Company. Arjan is with us from Jiffy Group. We have Rainier with us, who represents Urban Grow. We have Ralph with us, who represents Zando Limited, and we have Alice with us. She is from Signify Philips. Welcome, everybody. This is the concluding session of the event, and we're pleased to have you with us on this roundtable to discuss about what's happening in the industry vis-a-vis your particular companies and vis-a-vis your particular expertise. I think let's start with Rainier. First of all, I'll just try to put across a quick question to you, and then probably with your inputs, if any one of us from the panelists we want to add on a couple of things, we can quickly do that. So Rainier is joining us from Urban Grow, where he's the Vice President of Horticulture for the company. Well, I think with your expertise in architecture and engineering solutions, and with what we know about Urban Grow, is that you have provided completed solutions for more than 1 million square meters of farming so far. How significant do you think is the design and architecture of the facility and the setup for a controlled environment agriculture? What is your take on that?
Yeah, it's a good question, Tahir. Thanks for that. I think it's extremely important. It's the core of our company. It's also the core of our existence, let's say, and what we supply to our customers. We as a company, we don't think that there's a one size fits all solution. Let's say every single project is a different project. There's different goals. There's different local circumstances. There's different products to grow. So it's definitely always necessary, let's say, to approach the project in an individual way. Looking at architecture, I think to have a purpose-built facility is always improving your facility and the operational excellence of your system, of your facility. Sorry. So that's also why we acquired the architect firm a couple of months ago in order to support our customers to build purpose-built facilities in that sense. It's really having a bad benefit, let's say, on having pesticides outside of the facility and have it organized to have a proper setup of your cultivation systems inside. And second of all, let's say, I think by the services that we do, we specify the equipment which is needed to serve the goal of an individual customer. And again, that's really depending on the location, on the goals, and on the products to grow. Having a low value product will guide you to other equipment than high value products. Growing or building something in Abu Dhabi where land is really cheap is something different than to do that in Singapore where you pay a very high price. So it always is an individual approach. So design is key. And I think that's where we save a lot of money for our customers and also to optimize the facility and the operational part inside.
Excellent. And does anybody want to add anything on to what Rainer just said?
No.
All right. Okay. So it saves your time, Rainer.
Yeah, I can only fully agree that it's crucial to build the right system. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. But by the way, just one other thing. Sure, Ralph. Please go ahead.
I think one of the other things that Rainer said is that, or emphasizing the variety of crops that we're dealing with and the stages that we're growing crops through to. If you're talking about baby leaf lettuce compared to heads of lettuce, that's a different proposition. Strawberries or tomatoes or whatever. It's not the same farm. It's not a case of just going, take this and repeat it. It's a different thing. So the point of you have to build the right farm, I think, is very much on the money.
Yeah, and of course we try to leverage on building blocks. You don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So you try to leverage on the expertise, on the things that you have done before. However, you should always start from a clean sheet in order to be most effective.
Okay. And Rainer, the other thing I wanted to ask was about: is there any specific region that you are concentrating more at the moment, or you see more potential globally?
Well, for Urban Grow, of course, I'm responsible for the EMEA region, or actually what I said during my conversation earlier, everything outside of the US. Where the US is a huge market, but my colleagues have a good focus there, so I'm not needed in order to support them in that way. But EMEA is my region. We see the market in Europe really picking up, where a couple of years ago, let's say, nobody was really looking into it. It were very small scale farms. I was happy to be part of the team of Planet Farms in a very early stage from my Philips Lighting past, and also after my job at Philips, I continued supporting them. Really happy to see how they developed over time and set up a great farm in Milan, or in the region of Milan. But I think that the retail market, let's say, is really changing at this moment in time, and they really understand now what vertical farming can bring to the market and really improving the supply chains in Europe. So although Europe is and especially the Netherlands where I'm based, is a country where people are very conscious on the food prices in particular. And of course we have a very good climate and good conditions, let's say, to grow our food. But still, all the retailers at this moment in time in the Netherlands are looking at how to change their sourcing strategy and implementing the sourcing from vertical farms into their strategy. Like Albert Heijn, one of the largest retailers, they have already the connection to Future Crops, which is one of the farms here in the Netherlands. And in the EMEA region, I think from another perspective, just having local production in the Middle East, there's a lot of potential, let's say, in the region. Which is really changing the imports towards local production. So there will be a lot of changes in the Middle East as well. But it's a harsh climate. So also for vertical farming, you need to adapt to it because the outside circumstances, the water usage, and so on. It's a different input for the project.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Rainier. We also have Arjun. He is also joining us from Netherlands. So I think with regards to the particular specific territory there. But so Arjun is joining us from Jiffy Group, who provide a lot of solutions for the vertical farming industry. Now, when it comes to sustainability, how do you think vertical farm promotes sustainability, and do you really think that sustainable aspects of vertical farming, how do they weigh up against the main environmental downsides or challenges?
It's a good question to hear. The sustainability word is the magic word today. Everyone talks about sustainability, but what is sustainability? If you look at growing crops in the soil and you use artificial water, if I may call it like that, no rainwater, and you spoil it into the soil and it disappears forever. Is that a sustainable solution? So what we already found out I would say in the early 60s, by moving away from soil crops to growing media like stone wool and peat, we saw that it was relatively easy to reuse water. And by recycling it and cleaning it, I would say that is a kind of sustainable system. But what you now see, to zoom into your vertical farm, I would say the local for local, where in the past we were always growing our food ourselves, and the industry has learned us that we can transport food over the entire globe. So the food mile issue, that is a big thing. So vertical farm can be the solution for the local for local. And that is where we as Jiffy believe in, that we should produce our growing media closer to the market, have lesser transport. Everyone is aware of the issues now with freight, bringing goods over the place with COVID. So produce the stuff close to the users. And when there is a move to vertical farms in the urban areas, it makes sense for us to produce these materials closer by. Next to this, when you talk about vertical farming, we also see a lesser use of input, and that is by far one of the sustainable solutions here, I would say. So the water has been mentioned, but what about fertilizer? So if you recycle every water you drip through the system and ends up in the gutter, you try to reuse that. You don't have to bring in new fertilizers, and at least not the bunch you should have in the soil crop. And last but not least, when you use growing media which can be recycled, like our organic materials or the grow foam plugs I discussed yesterday, that is really a good step forward, I would say. So lesser waste. One of the presenters today said something about 40% or 44% was waste in terms of food, and that is a huge number. And if we can bring that down by recycling it and either make it into new food or food for the cattle industry or something, I would say that we are doing the best thing to move this forward.
Thank you very much, Arjun, for your inputs. Does anybody want to add anything to this, what Arjun just said?
Yeah, I think when you talk about sustainability, it's a key word, right? So everybody's using sustainability. If you really want to look at sustainability, I think all the points that Arjan mentioned, let's say, are very valid. But it's really having a complete focus on the life cycle analysis of your project, right? So that doesn't stop with individual components. It might even go as far as looking at where equipment comes from and how equipment is being manufactured and what are the social parts of manufacturing. So it goes, if you really want to do sustainability and analysis on that really in a more advanced way, it's really looking at life cycle analysis of your full project, I think.
The complete value chain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because only local for local and comparing that to transport is one part, but at the end we are using a lot of energy in the vertical farms as well. So how is the energy being generated? What is the impact of that? So sustainability is really a key word, but it's often misunderstood, I think.
Talking of energy, I'm sorry, yes, please, if you want to add anything.
I think it's a really interesting aspect. Again, it almost goes back to what Rainer was saying earlier about making sure you build the right farm for the situation. I grew up in Scotland. We have a lot of water. We have so much water, we have to turn it into whiskey and ship it around the world. I've also spent a lot of time in California. They have a different problem with water, or a different attitude to water. The same with energy. Some parts of the world it's very expensive. And the same with travel as well. And here's the really interesting thing. If you say an hour's drive, that's still, you could say that's quite local. But in the United Kingdom, an hour's drive will probably take you from some of the more northern factories into London, or into the outskirts of London. But once you hit the outskirts of London, an hour's drive takes you 5 miles.
Yeah.
It can be very, very slow. So what do we mean by local? And is it the right thing? Because if you become too local, you make the farm smaller and smaller and smaller. And there is a critical mass thing that happens in every industry. And every industry that we have, actually, the bigger the factory, the more toys you can have, the more techniques you can have. Traditionally, scale has favoured the larger installations. So I think we have to be quite careful about what we're talking about here. There could be a great rush towards container farms, but is that the right thing? Or is it more like the bigger farms, the 5,000 metre farms, the 10,000 metre farms, that once you take a long time to load material into the truck? Is it really a big difference between a 30-minute drive and a 1 hour and 30-minute drive? I'm not sure. I think this is still something that is going to take some time to play out as to what the balance is between the sustainability and scalability aspects. So I think it's really interesting, and I think we all have to focus on what makes these farms profitable, because you cannot make a difference to sustainability if you don't exist anymore. They have to be viable businesses first and foremost. So it's very interesting.
Bankrupt businesses,
Absolutely.
it's definitely not sustainable, huh?
Exactly.
Talking of energy, I was getting to.
So,
Yes,
Sandy,
Alice, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I
No,
agree with the gentleman's what's been said before. I think an aspect which has not been mentioned yet and goes beyond the whole system approach is the use of pesticides. Because that's not needed. I think even it's not only sustainable for the earth and for the system, but also for the consumers eating the produce. So it goes beyond the whole system approach. That the fact that you don't need to use pesticide, herbicide, have no residues on your produce. I think that's an advantage, which is I think very valuable for consumers. That goes beyond electricity, for example.
Completely agree. Although
absolutely.
I think
I personally think that I think it's just an advantage for the consumers. It's a USP for the vertical farm owners, because all around the world we can see people are looking more for organic sort of produce, or where we do not use chemicals and where we do not use pesticides, etc. So there's a huge market opportunity there as well. Well, moving swiftly onto that, I was coming to Alice, when we're talking about the energy and sustainability. So Alice represents Signify. She is the global director of city farming there. And what I wanted to ask Alice today is, when vertical farming is already, sort of becoming a commodity, what is the importance of LED lighting in this sector? And, from the point of view of your company, how do you put it across within the sector?
Okay. Well, I really dare to challenge the fact that it's a commodity yet. I think we are far from having a commodity industry because I think there's a lot of challenges still in setting industry standards, in setting, general racking automation systems specifically geared towards the industry. At the discussion we had before on seeds, now we are most of the time still using seeds that first have been developed for greenhouses or open field, and now seeking for the best varieties. And finally, companies are developing specific seeds. So for me, the industry is far from being a commodity. And if you look then at lighting, of course, lighting on zich is a commodity, but lighting for horticulture, by far not. Although we are in lighting for over 75 years, I think LED solutions are there for 15, maybe 20 years, specifically geared to horticulture. And we're still learning today. Yeah? We are, of course, we're working on the lighting modules and to make them as efficient as possible. And efficiency indeed is the euros you pay per micromole. So that is what we challenge our engineers on a daily basis on, to increase the efficacy of all the lighting modules. But it goes beyond that. It's not only the efficacy of the lighting modules. I think it's the whole lighting system that is geared for vertical farming. So if you have, Reinier mentioned before, you need to develop the system to the crop. Well, if you have a dynamic lighting system that you can actually change throughout the growth cycle, so that you can dim in the beginning or change the spectrum at the end to increase yield. Do you know, if you can play with the lighting and make it as efficient and optimized for that crop as possible, I think that's still innovation where we've done our thing in the past, but where we're working on still on new light recipes, on new growth recipes, and even beyond that, beyond lighting modules, beyond dynamic lighting systems, the integration with climate, to see how that can be optimized. I think that's crucial to keep the sector, to keep innovating in the sector. So I'm sure that until the day I retire, there will be enough technology to work on and issues to improve, and even beyond that, because there will always be new crops that need new applications or new lighting elements. And well, even after so many years, we're still optimizing our lighting solutions for offices, for public areas. So I'm happy with the lighting efficacy we have nowadays, but we're always working on improvements.
Alice, is there anything coming after LED or not?
If there is, I'm not telling
preview,
you.
Come on.
I think at the moment there's a lot of innovation effort on LED.
Okay. Now, Alice was also briefly talking about, the quality of seeds and all. So I'm sure we're going to speak about that with Ralph. But before that, I would like to move on to James, who is the founder and CEO at Jones Food Company, the UK. They operate one of the largest vertical farms in Europe. So I think definitely with their experience in running a wonderful farm and running it very successfully, we would be very interested in knowing from James, what sort of, what are the key performance indicators for the vertical farming based on your experience with your own farms?
Firstly, thanks for having me to here. It's nice to be on this panel. Some very interesting comments coming through. Vertical farming is hard. We work in the UK. We're in the 6th cheapest food market in the world with the highest food standards. So it costs an absolute fortune to make sure that you are, there's unrelated costs just to get your crop out the door. So effectively, we've had to design systems that are working in the commoditized market, because when we started the business in building our first farm in 2018, supermarkets in the UK do not pay a premium for vertical farm produce. We're not the US. We're not, Singapore. We deal in tonnage, and we have to deal with a tonnage that is to a specification and delivered at a price that is at least matches import, if not beats. And we work that year. So the site I'm actually at today was our first site, as you said. It was 5,120 square meters of growing space, 1,300 square meters of germination, and it produces about a third of the UK's total retail cut basil. which is quite good. And you don't want to go too much, otherwise you take over your own market, and that goes into about 3,000 stores every single week. So we run the whole business on KPIs and performance and energy. It was interesting about the energy chat. Being sustainable, as you know, in vertical farming, there's been reports about greenwashing. Being sustainable for us is just good for business. That's it. You know, we are plugged into large scale vertical solar farms with battery backup with wind, and that allows us to lock in a price per kilowatt hour for 10 to 15 years. So we can get around this, you know, it's going to be a problem. Sustainability is already there. It's just if you build in a city, you can't bang 55 megawatts of solar farms and batteries, and that's why we went down the route of building a very large scale plant factories, so that you get the economies of scale that Ralph was actually saying. You know, if you have a container, you can do 4 tons in a city. If you have a big farm, you can do 1,000 tons, 25 miles out, and you can run it with 8 people. So we're building other farms at the moment that there are 14,000 square meters and 18,000 square meters in growing space. But to go to your point about the key performance indicators that you have to look at when you're building these and operating them, and as Arjun said, you don't want a load of bankrupt companies trying to be sustainable, because that's not going to be good for the industry. But it's your OPEX per square meter. That's what it comes down to. So it's not just your lights, it's your HVAC, it's your people, it's your automation. You want to get that price down, so much so that then you can really, there's 2 numbers really. It's your OPEX per square meter, and then the kilograms produced per square meter in spec per year, that are really, really changing. You can spend 100 million, build a vertical farm. That's absolutely fine. But if it costs a lot to operate, you're never going to make any money. So you've got to be smart in the way you build things. It's people, the consumer and retailers are far more aware, and is moving towards, the kilowatt hours used to produce the crop, and then how does that relate to your CO2 impact? The Marks and Spencers, for instance, with their Plan A, they want to know their carbon footprint of the product, and by building and using how we do, we have a very, very low carbon footprint compared to even a greenhouse or field grown. And that links into the environmental benefits that you can then monitor, and how that passes on to your consumer or your customer. Arjun mentions about the food waste of 40%. It's a fallacy. Everyone keeps talking about we need to produce more food because we've got 10 billion people coming in 2050. We already produce enough food for 10 billion people in the world now. Problem is, we're very bad and we're very wasteful. So vertical farms are not fixing a problem of producing a lot of food. We're good at it. We produce enough food and we will then waste it. So the production are one of the key performance indicators on every shift is a percentage loss of crop or waste, and that has to be below 5%. Tesco's, for instance, run on a 3% wastage within their facilities, so that we have to also run at 3% to equal where near that. So you've got to look at vertical farms can grow all manner of things. It's absolutely fine. It's just, can you grow it for a price that someone's going to pay for it? That's really where it comes. And as the industry moves forward, strawberries and all this, yeah, it's fine. It's really exciting. But you can sell strawberries in the Middle East for a good value, but in the UK it's £1.20 a kilo, up to £9. So you've got to understand you're either going to have to build a system that has the OPEX cost, and then your CapEx cost. And people often forget, depreciation. We can build a vertical farm, we can operate it, and you can make it pay operationally. But when's your investor going to get the 10 or 20 million pounds that they put in? And that's where I think there's sort of some growing up that needs to be done within the industry. It's all very well spending, spanking a load of millions on stuff, but if you're not going to see a real return, and the real return comes in growing products, selling products, and ensuring that OPEX is paid for and then the CAPEX is tied in. But to sort of summarize your answer more efficiently, I think the likes or the key performance likes are the environmental benefits. What's the environmental benefit of producing crop and delivering it in at that time? And then the real numbers we're looking at daily are production waste percentages. Are we on target with the OPEX per square metre per annum? And then the kilowatts used in the CO2 that cost of produce is. Vertical farming, I think, I've only been in it 3 or 4 years, and we started with very clean, blank paper. And if you get in a good environment, you can grow lots of stuff. It really does come down to that. And but then you need to grow stuff that people want to buy. It's not one of the, you have to grow things that are to specification, that can go in a bag, can go in a film, can go in a pot that can be sold. If you grow a big bush of something, you can get high kilograms per square meter, but no one's going to buy it because it's out of specification. So specification is also a key performance. You have to grow, if you want to hit 50, 60 kilograms per square meter, in specification, that's really your big driving performance indicator that you should look at. And then you can break down the other ones that I mentioned.
All right, excellent. That was really insightful. By the way, just one quick question before we go to Ralph. I think, talking of OPEX, one of the gentlemen from the audience, Dimitris, the question he has put across is, since electricity prices, one of the main problems or the main factors for OPEX, he is asking, do you think nuclear reactors would be an option maybe 2-3 decades from now? Not sure if,
question.
So he's asking if, nuclear energy can be used. Yes. To save on to the electricity prices.
It's just an energy source.
Yeah, it's just a source of energy, right? So it's really, that becomes more a holistic question and a political answer, actually. And of course, nuclear power is more clean, let's say, than others, but it brings other types of risk as well. But yeah. It doesn't make sense to have the seas full of windmills creating energy by wind, all the other stuff. It's more about looking really at the energy cost and how that's being generated and supported also from government side, because this question really goes beyond any kind of vertical farm and its the power of deciding on it, let's say. So yeah, it's a difficult question, let's say, to address to individual farms. But yeah, nuclear power might be one of the sources in the future. But I think we might have had to discuss that about 10, 15 years ago, because it takes a while to set up the nuclear farms or the nuclear power plants.
Absolutely. All right. Now my next question is for Ralph, who is the CEO for Zendo, which is one of the leading seed health company. So Ralph, for what we want to ask from you is that what do you think about the partnership between seed companies and, let's say, the vertical farming companies, and do you think this type of an association is key to the new production system that will come in place with vis-a-vis vertical farming?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, there's been some talk of vertical farming becoming commodity and so forth. But if you're a seed producer, you look at vertical farming and it's such a small proportion of your overall business that it's not so important. So these alliances, yes, that's great, but it may be that they are more gloss than substance. What is really interesting, though, is that we've spent the last 70 or 80 years growing seeds, developing seeds, breeding seeds for disease resistance. And we're in a phase with vertical farming where we should be eliminating chemicals from the vertical farms because we have that ability. We haven't done it yet. There's a lot of people using various chemicals, chlorine washes, hypochlorites, and so forth. it's not uncommon in the vertical farming arena. But we have a much higher, we've got a much healthier environment for the plants. So we should be able to move away from breeding purely for disease resistance and start to look more at taste and flavour. As James was saying, in some markets, the UK, we probably are more interested in the cost than we are in taste and flavour. But of course, if you stop focusing on disease resistance, you can focus on yield. And so we've seen some things where by switching from one strain to an older, more traditional strain, you get something like a seven times increase in yield. Now that is game changing and can really support the industry. So really interesting things going on there. Some of that stuff, of course, is not entirely in the interests of the seed producers, because instead of having these very highly differentiated, very highly bred seeds, we're saying, do you know what? You can get more yield out of the old strains, and some of those traditional varieties may taste better as well. So it's quite an interesting, quite a controversial area at the moment, I feel. So, of course, that takes you to another interesting aspect of vertical farming. Of course, there's the large capacity vertical farms, but there's the specialty vertical farms as well. One of the things that I've noticed in vertical farming is you can't really commercially produce seeds in a vertical farm. So they're always going to come in carrying some sort of pathogen risk at the very least. You don't want to be using pesticides. And some of the resistance to pesticides, of course, is that you're growing the seeds very fast. You know, where a lettuce outdoors might take 60, 70, 80 days to become a lettuce head, in a vertical farm it might be half that. So there isn't the same time for the pesticides to dissipate. So you've really got to move away from these pesticides. And that's a really interesting combination of the seeds are coming in from an environment that is more likely to carry pathogens because you're trying to grow them outdoors. You're probably, if you're into specialty crops, you're probably dealing with smaller breeders who have less control over pathogens than the big seed producers. We're also in an environment now where more and more of the chemicals that are used to control pests in the fields are now being outlawed. So you're seeing a higher pathogen load coming in than ever before. And so it's a very, very big aspect for us, is saying you've got to bring this treatment into the vertical farm or into specialty suppliers, maybe cooperatives supplying the vertical farms to give these very sort of high health seeds the best chance. We're working with NIAB, which is, I don't know if you can help me on this one, James. Is it the National Institute for Agriculture and Botany?
I think you got that right.
Did I? I have got it so badly wrong on so many occasions. But working with them to try and come up with schemes for assuring the quality of seeds coming into vertical farming. And I think that's really going to be the way forwards, is to try and come up with a set of standards to say, that's what we need to do to the seeds, that's how they should be treated, and if you do that, you should not have issues with pathogens within the farm. So hopefully that gives you some insight into how I'm seeing the seed market evolving at this point.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Yes, indeed, very insightful. I think with this, we come to the conclusion for the last session. I really appreciate your time and your very valuable insights with us. I'll just hand it over to Afshin now with her vote of thanks, and we'll all wind up then. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tahir. So on behalf of this organizing team, it is my privilege to conclude this event with thanking one and all. So we are actually filled with genuine gratitude and respect for all the speakers who not only spared their time, invaluable time with us, but also enlightened us with commendable talk on particular subjects. So sincere thanks to our platinum sponsor, Farmfluence, gold sponsors, Jiffy Group and Signify, our silver sponsors, Zentu and Urban Grow, all exhibitors and associate partners who added value to this event. Also, special thanks to Mr. Tahir, Muhammad, Sabah, Umaima, Rushta, and other team members for their constant efforts to shape the conference and exhibition. Extending my humble thanks to our digital and research team for their dedicated work, and of course, all the visitors without whom this event was impossible. Coming forward, I want to do a few important announcements. First, exhibition area is open for networking for next 1 hour. So audience, please make the most of it. Next, we will share the links to download the recorded presentations of the session with the speakers by next week. All right, so, and for the sponsors and the partners especially, I want to say that our relationship with you does not end here with this event. It actually begins. So with this event as a stepping stone, we would like to continue this forward and continue this journey with you. So I want to assure you that any point of time in future, if you want to contact someone in the industry, we will be happy to help build you connections with them and arrange meetings for you even after the event ends. So please feel free to reach out to any of our team members and we will definitely get back to you with that. With this, we would like to hold hands together and help you reach your goals. The last announcement is that next year we are planning the second edition of this vertical farming show in the second quarter. So please send us your feedbacks on this and we can then plan it accordingly. With this, allow me to officially close this conference and thank you once again, all the speakers, for making it a success. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care. Thanks a lot.